Well, it's been a good week and a bad week for freedom of expression throughout the world. First, the good news. Tommy Robinson released, or as the Murdoch press would rather say in their headline, far-right leader Tommy Robinson released. Never going to miss an opportunity to slur someone from the opposite side of the political fence. The press just loves calling people they don't agree with far-right. I'll move on. UK judges have freed the far-right activist Tommy Robinson from prison after quashing his contempt of court conviction for live streaming outside a criminal trial in violation of reporting restrictions. Robinson, who founded the English Defence League, was serving a 13-month jail sentence for contempt of court and breaching a previous suspended sentence, having used social media to live stream outside Northern England court. Since his imprisonment, supporters of US President Donald Trump, including former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, have taken up his cause. A panel of 3 judges at the Court of Appeal in London quashed the finding of contempt, citing technical flaws, and freed him on condition that he's pending a new hearing. Robinson was jailed for 13 months within 5 hours after posting the Facebook video. The appeal court ruled that jailing Robinson so promptly gave rise to unfairness, and that the haste with which the case was dealt with meant his lawyers weren't given enough time to prepare. The applicant is granted bail and the matter of contempt at Leeds Crown Court is remitted to be heard again, said Lord Chief Justice Ian Burnett, the head of the English judiciary, reading the judgment. We are satisfied that decision at Leeds Crown Court to proceed to committal to prison so promptly gave rise to unfairness. Pursuing immediate proceedings against Robinson, the judge in the Leeds trial, Geoffrey Marsden, explained that he was conducting the second of 3 trials involving a total of 28 Asian men, Justice Burnett said. Judge Marsden told Robinson, the vast majority of what you were saying was reference to more like this, to Asian men, to the grooming of 11-year-old girls and the number of cases like this. No one could possibly conclude that this was likely to be anything other than highly prejudicial to the defendants in the present trial. Robinson's case will be reheard in England's Old Bailey Central Criminal Court in London as soon as reasonably possible, the judges said. And the other thing about this case is that Robinson was on Tucker Carlson's show on the Fox network in America, and he claimed that he lost about 40 pounds of weight over the journey, and because he was only given 1 can of tuna and fruit to eat for the whole day. And he said that they'd placed him on the authorities in the prison, the Muslim-dominated prison, had placed him on the ground floor so all other inmates could pass by his door and spit through the window and throw feces at him through the window. So he said the whole thing was planned as a psychological torture, and he was treated more like a political prisoner rather than a standard prisoner. And so he wasn't overly impressed with the way he was singled out. He was spending 23.5 hours in solitary confinement per day. So without really much information from the outside world. So it was pretty well mental torture 101. And that's disgusting in a country that's supposed to be civilised like the UK. So thank God he's out. He's on holidays. Apparently he's going down to Tenerife in Spain, which is ironic considering that Spain is now being overrun by illegal immigrants. So there is an irony there. But at least he's out of jail. He has a respite and he can come back to fight another day. But the press, he won't speak to the press in England, and why should he? They've done him no favours whatsoever. It's been a total hatchet job. The press do not represent the interests of the people anymore. They just push their own agendas. And I think it's a really disgusting situation in the UK when it comes to freedom of speech. Really are at the crossroads, and if something isn't done to basically diffuse the situation, things could get quite violent. So I hope it doesn't come to that. but it is a powder keg. And now to the bad news. Not welcome. New Zealand PM criticises views of Lauren Southern, Stefan Molyneux. This is an SBS article, so don't be surprised by the following. The views of two far-right speakers who toured Australia but cancelled their gig across the Tasman aren't welcome in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern says. New Zealand is hostile to the views of the two far-right speakers who toured Australia but had to cancel their event across the Tasman, its Prime Minister says. Controversial Canadian speakers Lauren Southern and Stefan Molyneux canned their show in Auckland on Friday night after the owners of the private venue they had booked pulled out. Speaking to media as she returned to Wellington after ending her maternity leave, PM Jacinda Ardern was asked about Mr Molyneux's claim New Zealand was hostile to free speech. "I think we're hostile to their views," she replied. "They're here because there were no grounds to block them being here, but that does not mean we welcome their views." Well, that's very open-minded of you, so you're not prepared to listen to someone with alternate views to yourself. Very, very broad-minded. I think you'll see from the reaction that they have had from New Zealanders that their views are not those that are shared by this country, and I'm quite proud of that. Yeah, those are the views of radical New Zealanders, not the majority of New Zealanders. Get your head out of your arse, Jacinda, and see the real world. The cancellation followed a move by Auckland's council not to allow the duo to speak at venues it owned on health and safety grounds. That decision prompted a heated debate on free speech in the country. The pair are known for controversial views on feminism, immigration and Islam, and Miss Southern was banned from entering the United Kingdom in March. She was also initially banned from entering Australia last month, but granted access at the last minute. When the pair spoke in Melbourne in July, protesters clashed with riot police. Yes, that's a great way to back up your case by rioting rather than having a sensible debate. This is what the left are doing. They're acting like thugs. Apparently they were attacking people trying to get into the speech that was on in Auckland. Buses were attacked. This is thuggery. And if this is the sort of response you have to open debate, well, God help us all. We're really in trouble in the West. We need to allow open debate. And if your views, Jacinda, aren't up to scratch, then you will be defeated on that floor of intellectual debate as opposed to rioting and thuggery in the streets. It's up to you. Which way do you want to go? The other thing I've got to mention too is I think Lauren Southern did Australia a huge favour by showing how much we have no-go zones in this country. She just wanted to have a walk down the street in Lakemba and interview a few people in a majority Muslim area. And a senior copper, wouldn't allow her to walk down the street and would actually arrest her for walking into another part of Australia, supposedly Australia, but not so. Not so, because normal people are not allowed to walk in to these enclaves. Now that is not the Australia I was hoping to live in. And the same can be said for places like Dandenong, which apparently are very dodgy after around 9 o'clock at night. Not so bad during the day, according to one reporter on YouTube. However, at night, it is very violent. This is not the Australia I was hoping to live in. It is really disturbing. So this is the bad news. But it's not the end of the bad news. We've still got one story to go. The New York Times is standing by its hiring of tech writer Sarah Jeong, despite several derogatory tweets of hers aimed at white people were recently unnerved on her Twitter account. "Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men," Jeong wrote in July 2014 in one of several old messages that have gone viral. Social media reactions first flared on Wednesday with images of incendiary tweets from an unverified Twitter account that looked to belong to Jeong. They surfaced shortly after the Times announced she was joining the paper. The Times issued a statement on Thursday declaring that it had reviewed her social media history during the hiring process and was standing by the decision to bring her aboard. "We hired Sarah Jeong because of the exceptional work she has done, her journalism and the fact that she is a young Asian woman have made her a subject of frequent online harassment. For a period of time, she responded to that harassment by imitating the rhetoric of her harassers, the Times said in a statement. She regrets it and the Times does not condone it. Yes, well, that's pathetic by the New York Times. I mean, they're really just trying to weasel their way out of this one. But basically, they've employed a woman who is a bona fide racist on their paper, and I think they're quite happy to do that because basically that's their mindset, and they're going to go down. They're basically in a spiral now, and their future is not assured by any stretch. They are representing a fringe readership that is going to be falling off as they find out how absolutely discredited this particular publication is. It's a bold move by them probably to get some publicity, but it's going to backfire big time. And, you know, people are able to change their opinions and evolve. And if Sarah Jeong has changed her opinions, good on her, because that was back in 2014. I suspect that she's fairly hardwired in her views. And she's gone to a paper which is pretty hard left. So it doesn't look good for her, I've got to say. And Tommy Robinson's got his history too, but he has evolved since then. And what I've seen of what he said, he's much more even-handed than he was in the past. So people are entitled to change, and they shouldn't be damned forever for making mistakes in the past. But like I said, I just suspect that Sarah hasn't evolved. Prove me wrong, Sarah. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.